Oh, welcome back to Enclave. It's nice to keep meeting this way. Enclave comes to you from the Puget Sound region, which is also known as the Salish Sea region. Jean Huving and I conceived of it at the beginning of the pandemic, when it became apparent that we would all be staying home most of the time. Doesn't March seem like an eternity ago by now? I mean, it does to me. Back then, we imagined that the pandemic would probably last a few months and then, end. But now, who knows? So we conceived our series as finite from the beginning. If you get out something to make notes, I can tell you now what we have coming up in the foreseeable future. So, should I give you a minute to get out a pencil and paper or your phone or something? Okay, so in a week from today, Sunday, June 21st, Bob Perlman will read. Sunday, June 28th, Lainey Brown. July 5th, Peter Gizzi. July 12th, Joseph Donahue. July 19th, Lissa Wolsak. July 26th, Charles Bernstein. And on August 2nd, Jean and I will close out the series by doing a joint reading. And then we're going to go on hiatus for August and September to, hopefully have some kind of vacation or something. Who knows? And it's possible that we'll start something up again in the fall, but let's leave that vague for now because who knows? So now I'm going to introduce Jean. We'll be introducing John Yau. Jean's recent books include the prose poem Mood Indigo from Selva Oscura. And not too long before that, well, actually a while ago, she had Incapacity, a memoir, a sort of poetic memoir from Chiasmus Press, which received a Book of the Year award from Small Press Traffic. She has two recent critical books, The Transmutation of Love and Avant-Garde Poetics from University of Alabama, and Thinking and Writing Poetry, which was co-edited with Tyrone Williams and is out from the University of New Mexico Press. Jean is professor of interdisciplinary arts and sciences at the University of Washington-Bothell. And there she is now.
Okay, thanks, Ray. I'm really delighted to introduce John Yau. He's a poet and fabulist, an art reviewer and curator. In addition to his many reviews and individual pieces, he has published more than 50 books. He started Black Square Press in 1999, which continues into the present in its ambitious publication of poetry, fiction, essays, and translation. He was the arts editor of Brooklyn Rail for many years, which he left to start Hyperallergic Weekend Edition. He is the recipient of many awards, including New York Foundation for the Arts, a Guggenheim, and an NAA. Most recently, he received the Jackson Award from Poets and Writers that is given to a poet who is, quote, exceptional talent who deserves wider recognition. I have to say that I have always heard and known about John Yau and already thought that he was widely recognized, but I'm really glad that Poets and Writers is in on the case. He has won acclaim for his poetry's attentiveness to visual culture and linguistic surface. Quoting from the award, I believe, it is the interplay between language, sound, and image that allows Yau's poetry to be both deep and mischievous, or should I say mischievous. In his prose piece, Nathaniel Mackey, in the prose piece Destination Out, describes an experimental art as centrifugal. It begins with a goodbye, wants to bid all givens goodbye. Amenities and consolations accrue to a horizon It wants to get beyond. I could not think of a description more apt for John Yau and his far-ranging contribution to arts and poetry worlds, his own innovations and experimentations as destination out. Here are a few of the many of John Yau's different kinds of projects and poetries. As a fabulist, there is his early wonderful 1983 Corpse and Mirror sequence. In it, just to give you a small sense of it, he envisions grave diggers who on their return from work, eager for a bright kitchen with a dinner underway, find themselves wishing instead they could join the procession of heads towing an invisible cargo toward the setting sun. In his 2012 Further Adventures in Monochrome, Yau investigates the life, art, and ideas of the French artist through Klein's words and John's words. These may be either of their or both of their words. Quote, I rejected the ordinary and the extraordinary because these are rungs one learns how to climb. I do not need a ladder to reach the sky. In his opinion sonnets, I like that word, opinion sonnets, because I hear some of my own students, John is also a professor at Rutgers, I hear my own students talking about their opinions. So in his opinion sonnets, he takes material from the internet that is anti-Asian. He comments, the opinion sonnets came from people who see Chinese people as different from themselves. I want to inhabit their language as well as shape it. Yau writes of his investigation into these stereotypic and hateful words as he wanted to explore their music through his poetry. He further comments, I wanted to get to the creepy intimacy the words evoke because the speakers of these poems know someone is in agreement with them. They have an audience. John Yau is drawn to the impossible. He tells of how his mentor and friend, John Ashbery, and Ashbery's co-collaborator, Guy Madden, wanted to make a film based on Henry James' The Golden Bowl. John remarks, sadly, it never came to pass. I love the idea they were going to make a movie about a novel that is nearly impossible to read. I will conclude with a few words from a recently published poem by John Yau, fittingly titled Philosopher King. Being a backyard philosopher means you never have to leave the premises. You can patrol the perimeter, extolling the virtues of mugwumps and weasels. Being a luminary means you are invited to festivals and televised appearances, that you stand beneath a huge sign on which your name appears, that you get to pose with your admirers as long as they are good-tempered, that bugs and other forms of living nuisance are gently shooed away. Okay, John Yau.
Oh, thank you. So I'm going to read from a manuscript that's going to be published next year called by Omnidon called Genghis Khan on Drums. The first piece I'm going to read is called Darts and Brooms. Can you all hear me? It's a funny thing to ask, can you hear me? But I feel like I better ask. 1. When I was a child, every story you told began with the same line. One wants to become a squirrel capable of surviving winter. No one could ever guess what you would say next, which is why we huddled around you each evening and waited for the shadows to walk deeper into the crowded room. Oops. Oh dear. Sorry. Second. All across the countryside, the ribbon heirloom bundles of arts and letters began to be stored in broom closets, while the brooms were put to better use. According to one of the few surviving chronologies of that turbulent era, this is what happened next. As members of a village or a town, for some reason, cities didn't count, we had to find a new way to measure distance, to anticipate what provisions were needed to travel from point A to point B. It had to be written in a language that we could all agree on, and that not proved elusive. In some parts of the countryside, it was reported that cookies were banned, a bourgeois luxury signaling that the roots of one's thoughts were planted in the leafy pond of idleness. This was how further roadblocks to wholesome advancement were removed. Elsewhere, though this has been harder to prove, caravans got stuck in time. One day we got news from a city seen on the horizon. Rows of bobbing smiles were erased from the faces of disgraced instructors. The oldest instructors, the ones closest to being completely useless as opposed to partially useful, were dressed up as scarecrows and brought out to the field so that they could become one with nature. So began the all-consuming reclamation project, the great upheaval, where barn swallows were trained to peck the eyes of interjectors and those gleaming with inconsequential infirmities. Your part in this remains a mystery, since you are not a direct participant, or at least as far as anyone remembers, or even a line of marks in a list included in a citation. According to a one-eyed witness, there was no moonlight in those years and butterflies lingered outside the park. One particularly gray Sunday, the body of a battered rabbit was mounted on a stick and planted at the park's entrance as a warning. The meaning of the warning was never agreed upon, which caused waves of consternation to undulate through the gathered clusters, heads bobbing in unison. It is known that there were other situations where it was best to imitate pigeons, but these have not yet been entered into the record. Monkeys were freed from their manacles. No one disputes any of these versions, since they all have a ring of truth to them, however small and dirty. 4. Can anyone prove reliable in this environment? Maybe there's no such thing as an eyewitness. Who sees the lone mosquito in the dark? I was there, but I didn't see anything. I heard your eyelids fluttering. I listened to the sweat rolling off a table. A beast's fur stiffened against the wind. A snake slithered out of a jug stored beneath the sink. The faucet never stopped crying, one pathetic tear at a time. 5. I listened to your body sinking deeper into the mattress that separates us from the dissatisfied earth. We're not lying next to each other in the dark because it's forbidden, and we always obey the dictums posted on our doors. I feel you trembling in the humidity of collective apprehension. I try to believe that this is a dream scrap floating on a pool of spilled wine. I don't remember where I read these stories or if I read them. Maybe they just came to me.
So red.
Excuse me? Maybe I tried to believe that this is a dream scrap floating on a pool of spilled wine. I don't remember where I read these stories or if I read them. Maybe they just came to me, a memory of my grandmother staring at a reflection as if she were examining a stranger's pocked countenance. I was peering into a box full of minor adjustments when it all happened. I was having an erectile dysfunction when a commotion began taking place outside my window. I was talking to a rooster or a sheep, someone disguised as a confidant. The last time I scorned your shadow proved to be our undoing. 6. The symbol for love is a skull. It does not have to be grinning. It's not a hollow container where you store your jewelry or an orb to be polished by the bedroom window. You should not have told it your secrets. Those who say poverty finds its own humor are liars, deluded as the mayor on his hands and knees pretending to eat grass. This is what you never talk about, even though it's written all over your face. Your neighbor was put out to pasture. You licked at 4 walls and learned to sew and sing. Sometimes you would get up and dance. For years, you took comfort in climbing onto the only table your relatives left behind and pretending that you're looking for the horizon. The next poem I'm going to read is from the series Opinion Sonnets, and it has a epigraph. It was said to me by my neighbor in the elevator, "Don't blame bat soup for the Wuhan virus." That was before we had to wear masks. They don't just gobble down 4-legged and 2-legged creatures. They slurp slime-depositing life forms residing on pond bottoms. They bury their eggs in dirt dug up from children's graveyards. They make broth for dumpling soup from bones of rabid dogs. They scrape donkey hides and turn the piles of pickings into youth jelly. They rub bird droppings into dark crevices in pursuit of yellow beauty. They refuse to change their names to soft letters that roll off the tongue. They hide others among them that harbor torrents of bad and ugly feelings. They claim their ancestors were inventors when they were farmers crouching in mud. They concoct history so fantastical that not even small children believe them. They invented fireworks, noodles, and kung fu, which hardly adds up to a civilization. They openly sneeze and snicker about it, and then they scatter like mice. They are nothing more than scribbled names on the flyleaf of a tattered book. They might make good sneakers, but they're sneakier than snakes. This is called The President's First Lesson on Air. It was written on December 23rd, 2019. It's true. I know bird graveyards better than anybody. I've studied killing bald eagles better than anybody living in our universe, in Germany, or under a windmill. If you own a house based on wind, I know you manufacture a tremendous amount of fumes, spewing noisy carbon into the atmosphere. I know. I've studied killing better than anybody. Whether it's in China or your house and the television goes off, I know dead birds are spewing cancer from the graveyards of our tiny world into our air, our wind, our everything. Congratulations, they say. Congratulations on your tiny world full of windmills and air. This is from a group of poems called The Philosopher. I think I was dealing with male toxicity, I guess. He had become a red-scalloped cloud hanging motionless in the sky. He grew contemptuously indifferent to the logic of public opinion. He knew his best thoughts were covered with rare vegetation. He was stuck between formless verbosity and passionless rhetoric. He refused to be jaded by his extravagant gastronomical exertions. He felt an unaccountable loathing at his need to toss off ill-humored phrases. He did not want to fall prey to listless uneasiness or eager hopefulness. He was afraid he was a filament in a sea captain's hostile imagination. He expressed surprise by becoming a comical and deferential satyr. He would never again be a poet, walking in a valley populated by shadows. And this is 7 from the same series, The Philosopher. He liked to claim that being deceitful was a useful ploy under the right circumstances. He possesses traits that others in his field are loath to discuss in public. He foolishly marries supplemental doubts to the baggage he carries with him at all times. He said he was a form of rust spreading its insidious presence into every discussion. He wrote a theory that proved insoluble, causing his rivals to burst out and celebrate. He was said to be wantonly and detestably unkind, which added to his poisonous allure. He recognized with a vanquished and weary sigh that insights were alien to his spirit. He refused to admit that he had left the rosy twilight of his boyhood in an oily ditch. He knows that his words will outlast him, helping to further diminish his reputation. He compared himself, not unfavorably, to a frying pan crammed with hissing matter. Just a second. Untitled Hotel. The blue moon is not quivering, I am. Of heavenly flowers planted, fall and stick, sins or since. What does time matter now that I have so little left in which to dream? Tangled as I am, I do not want to leave, inflamed quagmire illuminating my brief stay, so much of it spent dreaming of you. I have in my own eyes become laughable to think my thinking matters a whit in this wind, living in a hotel room only I have a key to. Not even the owners know that I'm here, dwelling on outskirts of town. I'm not a stranger to my own thoughts. There's no footage to save, no photographs, certainly not the clump of dust I am to become. Why I am still a poet. I have never worn pantaloons and a tricorn hat to a poetry reading. I've never claimed to embrace multitudes or platitudes. I've never had my name on an A list, even as an alternate. I've never shared photographs of myself with my head shaved. I do not do handstands to prove I can still get it up. I do not teach creative writing in a prestigious program. I do not write about the woes that befall me and make my suffering special. I did not perform a weather report to prove my avant-garde credentials. I do not serve up saccharine dollops that would make a goldfish vomit. I did not stand on a piazza and declare that I was a lunatic comet or a failed comic. I did not compare my mother to the moon, gnawed at by a pillar of salt. I did not press the accelerator while pointing at the stars and singing her name. I do not mind being ostracized if it means I'm like everybody else. I sit in the dark and tell jokes to my dog until night fills my windows. Now I'm going to read from another series. It's called Catullus Sails to China, which of course is where he sailed to. I'll just say one little thing. My offspring was studying Catullus and translating him, and I decided I would translate him by only using translate programs, and I translated them to different languages, and then I dealt with what I had left or got back. Catullus Sails to China for leisure is a boilermaker sitting opposite you. I no longer count those who drowned in my riches, leaving their bones to wash up on a terracotta floor. Listen, a broken bed can be given a new neck. No. This poem is for you, before you dump me in the old people's park. Just another bad deposit on view. Or must you say more insulting things about me? Is it something other than my flailing eyes that shuffles my interest into your hair? The sounds stay buried in your curled mouth. My luck. I never get to think of you as a beast. I love that we're not married and we're a nightmare. 6. Listen to the voice in your head, Catullus, not the one sitting next to you, draining mojitos, Negronis, updated sidecars, bubbling volcanoes of yum-filled drops of deliciousness that cannot be replicated, which is why you have to have one, not that the nitwit ignoramus dunderhead roller coaster parked next to you knows mojo from juju, which is why he was hexed from birth. No silver spoon, no baby shoe dipped in gold, just a plastic bucket for a head. You don't need to cut someone's throat to know that he bleeds, and the blood isn't worth the factory-made carpet it drips on. Call the prayer. I live next to a mosque, a street mosque, and before the pandemic, I would hear them call the prayer 5:30 to 6 in the morning. Call the prayer. Let us jeer all the officials, the muckety-mucks and know-it-alls, the city councilors, chairmen, and presidents of the board. Let us make funny faces whenever we're asked to pause and listen to one of their public announcements. Let us laugh long and heartily whenever they somberly say they are with us, that they are sending us their heartfelt prayers, their deepest condolences, their wishes for a speedy recovery. Let us hoot like drunken owls. Let us be loud and obstreperous. Let us cackle again and again. So the sonnet series, Opinion Sonnets, has gone on, and this is called Opinion Sonnet 21. I watched the old man, who's not that old, fall harder than he was pushed. The police walked by because they had seen this act before many times. They teach it in Chinese circus and acrobat school, an easy trick to get an ah. I watched the old man, a well-known agitator, a member of a terrorist group. He was carrying something in his hand, a device probably made in China. Maybe the device sent the wrong signal, causing him to fall backward. That's because Chinese don't read from left to right, but get this, from right to left. I watched the old man fall, but was the blood coming from his head really his? All you need is a bag you can squeeze, and everyone will think you're dying. I watched the old man, who's not that old, act like he had been pushed after running into the police, tripping over his big feet and falling backward. One moment he was standing, the next moment he was on the ground bleeding. You don't get that way by being pushed. You get that way by falling. I watched the old man, who's not so old, fall before he was almost pushed. And then I wrote this on June 4th, the day before my 70th birthday. I started to think of the filmmaker Jean Vigo. So this is for the spirit of Jean Vigo. I began this poem shortly after I asphyxiated the cuckoo hiding in my alarm clock. I will never lift up a spoon of alphabet soup, even from languages I do not comprehend. I wish to be described as a nuisance who acts with sincerity and dedication. I refuse to turn a buttery shade of pale in order to improve my complexion. I like to thumb through books that have no spines and their covers are burned. I welcome the snow widening its cavalcade on the charcoal-colored horizon. I neither sweep my plumed hat before me nor grab the hilt of my sword. I will not open my mouth and reveal how many rows of teeth I possess. I always make my bed even when I do not leave it and go to my boring job. I like poems that perspire freely, fart ferociously, and urinate dreamily. I cannot tolerate another winter in a fallout shelter, wondering where the time went. I will give you all my personal stationery if you promise never to write me. I loot because you proudly put it on display and act like I'm not supposed to take it. I do not wish to be exonerated by you or anyone else. Now I'm going to read the title poem of the book. I guess if you write a book and you have a title poem, you should read it. Maybe not. I think this will be the last thing I read. It's called Genghis Khan on Drums. It's in 4 sections. Once you were a crescendo, a cascade, a saraband, hacked haiku coughing up blood and spitting on moon with no dance to cry over spilled sludge. Once your name was John Chinaman, you lived in a cricket ding-dong on outskirts of mills and malls in granted state of Marshmallow Falls. You said, call me Johnny Jodhpurs or Lenny Systematic, Swave Stymie or Hamburger Harmonica. You said, listen to my thunderstorm and fireworm while you perambulate, squeal, and stamp indissoluble. You said, I'm a picket fence, a rumor, a superlative immigrant, a turboprop laxative. You said pickaxe, influenza, rum, and tuxedos twang. This is the placard above my rickshaw chariot, moonchaser swoop. 2. Once you were an egret, tired of all regret sticking to you like white feathers. You thought you were a mirage, a whisper, a lone lover standing on one leg, a bush or shrub steamed in shimmering distance. You began to dream that you saw what you were dreaming in front of you as you looked down from airplane window, remembering the dog sitting beside your desk, 2 boys burning a rat for fun, a bank robbery in progress, and the song of a young girl who lived beside her dead parents. Another body lives inside with dilapidated husk. Another intruder longing to leave me standing by the water's blue and pink edge, wondering why I can no longer see my face when I look down into the water. 3. Once you were a makeshift bamboo pontoon bride, a cleaver man, a phonograph of someone lost in an eddy that no one heard, a dirty look pushed through a window, a young girl standing on a stoop, listening to her father spout cliches as if they were precious nuggets to be handed down from one military attaché to another. Winter came and stayed. You were scheduled to make a speech until you saw a ghost had entered the auditorium and was sitting in the front row smiling. Your throat a furnace where the words bloomed in flames, a lamp of unstable considerations pressing its muddy towel against your bleeding gums. 4, this is the last section. Once you were human, but then you forgot to put in for overtime. The weather grew hungry, but you were not in the mood and decided that being ignorant was a sign of how savvy you were and not being fooled by those who talked down from the sky or wherever they sat when they were not shitting on others besides you. There were many tragic cuckoos indebted to their illnesses, standing at the end of the street, waiting to drift into the crevice sun's bright red scar. Once you were a greasy river cut off from dreams, and hundreds of fish floated on your back, their bellies swollen and their heads stinking. And you said, 100 years from now, this watch that I'm looking at will still be telling time, even though it lies on the muddy bottom, a lone lantern pointing to the stars. Once you were a wall, pockmarked with bullet holes, astonished that anyone would look at you and not vomit. But that was before the future arrived, an unexpected guest. Thank you.